Today in our 2010 Dodge Caravan, we're going to install the Air Spring Airlift System, part number AL60814. To install our Air Spring system, first we'll need to go ahead and lift up the body of the vehicle. Then I'll use an additional jack to support the rear axle of the vehicle. It'll be required that we're able to rotate the axle down far enough to remove the coil springs in order to complete this procedure. Our next step will be to remove the bolt that holds the bracket for the steel brake line and the ABS wiring harness. Each step we do here on the driver's side, repeated identically on the passenger side. With that bolt removed, we'll also remove the rubber clip holding the ABS harness to the steel brake line. This will assist us in giving us the clearance we need when we rotate the axle down. Now the only step that we're going to have that won't be repeated on each side is the removal of the anti-sway bar here for the rear axle. We're going to go ahead and remove this bolt so that the axle can swing down and won't go into a bind. I'll just go ahead and throw my hardware back into the anti-sway bar, and then I'm going to take a zip tie to secure the anti-sway bar up out of the way. Our next procedure, we're going to go ahead and remove the lower shock bolt. After we remove the lower shock bolt, the shock will still extend, but that's okay, that's normal. Got one more attachment point I'm going to go ahead and remove just to make sure I have plenty of room with the steel brake line as we swing the axle down. The plastic clip holding the brake line here will simply get behind it and pry it out. This will give us plenty of swing as we lower the rear axle. Now with all of our attachment points removed, we are free to go ahead and lower the rear axle. We need to lower it just enough so that we can get the rear springs out of the axle. Alright, now with the rear axle down, I'm going to go ahead and take a marker and mark the orientation of our spring to spring seat. Now that we've got the spring marked, we can go ahead and remove it from the vehicle. Now that we have the spring out of the vehicle, we need to go ahead and drill a 1/2 inch hole through the top of the grommet. Once you have the hole drilled out the top of the grommet, we're going to move to the spring seat on the body of the vehicle and drill it out also. Next to the hole we just drilled in the spring seat, we'll install the rubber grommet supplied with our install kit. This will help protect our air line that'll go through this hole from rubbing on the metal and wearing a hole through the line. We're now back at our spring, and I've gone ahead and turned it upside down as we're going to remove the lower jounce strike plate. We'll set that aside for reinstallation later. Now that we have the lower jounce strike plate out, we need to remove the jounce bumper. The jounce bumper will be removed and not reinstalled as the airbag will take its place. To remove the upper jounce strike plate and the jounce bumper, we'll simply pull up and twist to get it out of the spring. Now that we have it out of the spring, we need to remove the jounce bumper from the upper jounce strike plate. Now we're going to go ahead and reinstall the upper jounce strike plate. We're going to go ahead and install the air spring, making sure the nipple of the air spring is pointing up towards the upper jounce strike plate. Now with our air spring in position, we'll go ahead and reinstall the lower jounce strike plate. Now once we've lined back up our previously marked spring and upper jounce plate, we can reinstall it into the vehicle. Now we're going to go ahead and raise the axle back up in position just enough to hold our springs in place. Next we'll go ahead and route our air line. It's going to go up through the hole we drilled, through the upper jounce bracket and the spring seat. Now we need our air line to come out through this hole here above the upper coil spring bracket. So I'm going to use a piece of wire that I've got a little hook bent in to catch the hose and bring it out through the hole. Now with our air line run through the coil spring and through the spring seat, we can go ahead and raise the axle back up into position just enough to hold the coil into its position. Alright, now we'll go ahead and start with running our air line. When running your air line, you want to be sure to stay away from as many moving components as possible, such as the steering or suspension, or excessive heat, such as the exhaust. We'll be using some black zip ties that are supplied in our install kit to secure our line. Next, we'll go ahead and line up our air line, measure the length we need, and go ahead and use our tubing cutter to cut the line. Once we have the line cut, we're going to take the line clamp, slide it up over the line, and then push the line down over the barb fitting on the airbag. Now with our line in place, we'll go ahead and slide the clamp down over top the line in the barb fitting. Now we can go ahead and complete the same process on the passenger side. Now with both of our lines run here to the back of the van, I'm going to go ahead and take a line clamp, slip it over the driver's side line, then we'll take our T-connector that's supplied in our install kit, slide it into the line also. Once we have it in place, we'll put our line clamp over the line and the T-connector. Now we'll go ahead and repeat the same process for the passenger side. Next, I'm going to go ahead and drill out a hole that we can fit our inflation valve in. This will be our mounting point for the inflation valve. Now before I go ahead and install my inflation valve, we can pre-assemble it off the vehicle. So first we'll go ahead and put our line clamp onto the line. Then we can take our inflation valve and fit it to the line. And as we did before, we'll put our line clamp back over the line and the inflation valve or barbs of the nipple. Then I'm going to go ahead and take a nut that's provided in our install kit. This will go onto the inflation valve and will be the backside support once we run it through the body of the vehicle. Next, we'll take our lock washer and slide it on. Now we're ready to go ahead and put it through the hole we drilled in the body of the vehicle. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my inflation valve, fit it into position, and route my hose to the T-connector. I'm going to go ahead and make a mark, then I can pull my inflation valve back out and cut the line. This will make it easier for me to get a nice, square, straight cut on my line. Then we can go ahead and slide our line clamp on to the line just as we did before. And we'll take our line and fit it into the T-connector. With our line in position, we'll go ahead and put our line clamp into position. Then we can go ahead and install the inflation valve. On the outside here, to secure the inflation valve, we're first going to slide on a rubber washer, then a flat washer, and then our nut. Once we have the outer nut installed, we can go ahead and tighten it down. Once we have it tightened down, we can go ahead and install the inflation valve cap. Now let's go back and go ahead and reinstall the rear axle. As you bring the rear axle back up to the body of the vehicle, you're going to find that there's some extra line in the air hose. I recommend to double check your air hose routing, as you may need additional points to secure it. Once you've completed routing your air line and checking it, I recommend take a pair of side cutters and cut off the excess from the zip ties. Now that we've got everything tightened back down, we've completed our install of our new airbags. Next, what we're going to do is go ahead and drop our vehicle, pull it up to a drive-on lift so that we can check our airbags for leaks and operation. All right, now that we've tested for leaks, that'll do it for the install of the AirLift 1000, part number AL60814 on our 2010 Dodge Caravan.